All right. Welcome, my bows and bow ties, to another video with me. I am the Black opinionated woman, also known as a bow. So today, this is what I'm going to talk about: the Writers Room podcast for And Just Like That, episode 3. And basically, I think what I was seeing was a lot of uncomfortable receipt of criticism. Let me take this off here. All right. I'm trying to keep my energy up because I'm a little tired. I'm just really tired today, but we're gonna get through it. So if you're in here, this is what you selected. You selected this thumbnail. This is what we're talking about today. I always like when I put that up there. I don't know why. It makes me feel like perfectly shady. All right. I'm going to add something else to my screen here, because during this, there's a couple of times I want to play the, here, we're going to do that, but we're not going to go to that right away. I'm going to want to play this when I'm actually having a conversation. So, all right, I'm just going to get into it. So these are my thoughts about this writer's room. Now, I know I am probably a month and a half or so late to these. I didn't want to recap these at the time because I didn't want to actually know what they were thinking. That would taint my thoughts. But if you're new to this channel, I talk about three things. I talk about I talk about things related to Black women. I talk about things related to Black culture and anything related to middle age. And when I say I talk about things about Black women, it's not that our problems don't, cross or other races or anything, but I try to lend a level of specificity primarily because we are definitely underrepresented out here on this platform, but many of the things that we deal with are similar to other groups of people. All right, let me get on into it. All right, so yeah, we're going to talk about this middle age stuff. We're going to talk about this episode. So yeah. Overall, I just felt like they were very uncomfortable with the viewers' criticism. That's what it comes down to, in my opinion. Okay, sorry. I think that they were just kind of butthurt because I think they thought that there was going to be this outpouring of support, like, yay! The reboot of Sex and the City is bad because Sex and the City was a very beloved series. And so I think when they realized it was like week after week, they weren't getting that warm reaction. I think they were just in their feelings. I wrote down a few notes, well, a lot of notes. The one thing I wanted to say is it goes back to what I was saying when I was recapping each of these episodes. I think in general, they didn't do enough to finesse us with the character development. Okay. So they said they want to address all these things right away. But the reality is, you can't gut punch your viewers, especially those who are highly intelligent and recognize a lot of the nuances from the previous reboot. So they just didn't do enough to finesse us with the characters. The other thing was, like I said, it was just so much so soon. It was like every possible conscious moment was thrown at us, and we just didn't really get enough time to digest. And again, like I said, I think maybe it was in episode 10 or 9. I'm not sure which one it was. I think what happened was they didn't have enough time to finesse us. Either the episode should have been longer than, was it 40 something minutes? They should have had like full hour episodes, or what they should have done, instead of having a 10 episode uh, uh, I guess season, maybe it should have been 15 or 18 or whatever it was. And then that way they could have properly developed the characters. Because remember, all of these, I hate calling them side characters, but the fact of the matter is the add-ons, they were kind of like side characters in the beginning because they weren't fully entrenched into the series. So I don't know. I just think the whole thing came out crazy. But anyway, I think they were just butthurt because most people did not take to this reboot. And most people, look, when you're going to be daring and try to reboot something that was beloved and it was iconic, you have to hit it out of the park. And most of the people who watch the original, they're going to feel some kind of way, right? There's a level of nostalgia, there's a level of protectiveness over certain shows. Right now, we just happen to be talking about And Just Like That. There's other shows out there that would garner similar reactions. All right. So let me just say, I believe her name is Reshna, and I could be saying this incorrectly. But anyway, he starts off by shading the writer. I forgot exactly what it was he said. I should have saved that timestamp. But I'm like, so this is how we're starting off? You're shading your writer. But so anyway, she basically says, sorry, if you see me looking up to the side, I'm looking at some notes. So basically, Reshna, the writer, she said something on the lines of that what made her really like the series was, I think, because of Carrie, because she was similar to her, like she was a small lady with big boobs or some nonsense. And I'm like, no, that's not why most people liked it. Most people did not like it because of somebody who was small with big boobs. The reason why so many people took to the series was because um, it was more like we were able to take a peek into the lives of these rich women who these privileged ladies. It was like so unattainable for most of us, but we had an opportunity to view fashion, to become educated on fashion. I remember that was the first time I had heard of Manolo Blahniks, like all that stuff. Just being able to see is like a peek into the lives of something other than ourselves. It gave us that fantasy. But the biggest thing was it was a bunch of women who were wealthy, who were living that life, but they still had normal woman problems. In my mind, that made sense. And let me just pause right there for a second, because when you can get a group of Black women to view something like Sex in the City, at least some of the people I know, that's a big deal, because oftentimes when you see a group of women who don't look like us, like many of their issues don't resonate. And I'm going to give you an example. Many of us like Sex in the City, but someone like me, I never took to Friends. I thought that was the stupidest show. I don't know why people are like, someone you watch Friends, remember that scene in Friends? I'm like, no, I mean, I've seen it before, but it was just so stupid to me. What resonated with me as a Black woman, a young Black woman, was Girlfriends. Okay. And for those of you who know, So that's the reason why when I say like something like a Sex in the City was such a phenomenon, when you take and reboot that, you got to remember what drew people to that was a group of women who were very different, highly privileged, living that single life. Like it was fun, it was sexy, there was fashion, there was humor. And many of us who are Gen X, we're now in our 40s and 50s. Well, back then we may have been vaguely conscious of certain things, but ultimately we weren't as conscious or woke, or whatever term we want to use now, right? We just allowed the writers to have their artistic creativity and do certain things. So when I listen to these writers, I just kind of feel like the writers needed to grow, and so did the characters. Okay, because the fact of the matter is, current Gen X right now, we are not living in that space where we can just hee haw those things, right? Because we are more aware. We're educated now. So what happens is we view things with a different lens, and you have to expect these characters to develop that way too. So anyway, the writers are going on and on. He said that in a nutshell, and you can go back and let me just make sure I put my ticker up, everything's alleged and just opinions and all this stuff. But if I remember correctly, he basically was really shocked and surprised at the reaction, but he kind of loved it. He loved the fact that people were so like, I love it, I hate it. I don't know. That was the takeaway that I got. I don't know. But this is the thing. So he said that everyone was so scared to talk about age, and they wanted to address it right away. So what I'm going to do, I want to play this for a second, because it's about a minute out of this I want to play. Just give me a second. Let me see if I can I get to it? Hold on a second. It was about a minute. Where was it? I wrote it down. Okay. It was at the 3:26 mark. I'm going to play this for a second and let me know what you guys think. Stop. Come on, computer. All right, listen to this.
Which is age, how the women look,
You're right. In a way, right. The things I think we were most afraid of, we handled right away, very early in the episode. They couldn't go after that because we said it ourselves. I realized. I know last podcast we said, oh my God, I feel like I've been pregnant for a year and I just want to get this baby out into the world. I just feel like we're ready to have it out in the world. Now it's out in the world. And I realized 20 years later, my muscle for being prepared for the reaction, I was not prepared.
Yes, and I adding on to that analogy, I felt it was postnatal. Like I needed to be horizontal for 24 hours afterwards because it's exhausting to hear the response. And
It's also to take that analogy even.
Okay, I think you guys got enough of that, right? So let me bring myself back here. So basically, they're exhausted about, being bodied up, about everyone's like, you guys are ding-a-lings. But let me just say this. Let me rewind this back. There's a level of expectation, right? By day, I'm an engineer. So there's a level of expectation when I go to work that I'm going to perform and do certain things, right? And deliver. And so as a mature audience member, I felt like there was a better way of addressing the age thing. You didn't have to, like, you can address it, but this is the thing. I think the reason why so many of us are feeling some kind of way is very polarizing is because I'm like, well, wait a second. We already know all of the things that are being said about when you get to middle age, like you're invisible, you're all these things. But I'm sitting there thinking like, we are not dead. Like 45 and 55, and maybe it's just my perspective, but when I see a 55-year-old woman, like most of the ones I know, let me just say this. I'm going to reiterate this again, like I did in other episodes. Most 55-year-old women that I know, they have more time. They have more disposable income. They have very few F's to give. They know exactly where they want to be, generally speaking. Okay? Let me go ahead and take this off so it's not too annoying. A lot of them are fit. They're living their best life. Now, there is an edge case for everything, for every single one that I say is doing certain things. I'm sure you can find someone to be antithesis of this, right? Like someone who's not doing well, someone who's in poor health, whatever. The point I'm making is the way they addressed age, and they're so proud of this. And I'm like, well, wait a second. I don't know. Maybe I'm just, into myself, but I feel like there's something to be said about these women who've been through so much, and now you're seeing them come of age and they're maturing. So, and maybe I think the reason why people are feeling some kind of way is because it seems like a personal attack, even though it's not personal, but we know better. So when I listen to these writers, I'm like, who's writing this? Did they not consult other 50-somethings? And maybe the ones that they're consulting, I don't know. Maybe these are some jacked up people. Or maybe I'm living in a bubble. That could be it. I could be living in a bubble. But generally speaking, most of the women I know, and this transcends race, okay? At 45, 50, especially the 50s, for whatever reason, the 50-year-olds are kind of like, can you believe I'm 50? Like, what is going on? I'm like, all right, well, let me go get my life. I'll talk to you in a couple of weeks because I'm going on vacation. That's just that life. Or whatever. That's not to say that 50s and 55-year-olds don't have like health issues, because all of us are like, oh my goodness, my knee hurts from something or whatever, right? I don't sleep well. There's a whole host of things that come with middle age, right? Most women aren't sleeping well. They have a level of tiredness. If you're still raising children, like my children are still in the house, maybe you're having to help do things for your parents. I don't know. If you have a career, I have a career. So my thing was the way they addressed race. They were just so proud. And I'm like, but you did was you gave it a black eye. It was like, I felt like I got bodied up. Like they gave me a body blow. And I was like, well, why does it have to be like that? The last time I checked, this is a good example. I don't know if you can see on this side here. I have about 2 or 3 gray hair. When I'm done with this live, let me tell you what's going to happen. I'm going upstairs. I'm like, nope, not ready. I don't feel like I have to be all gray. I'm not, by the way. I just want you to know that. I cannot be gray yet. I am not ready. So those couple of hairs that are hiding in here, they'll be gone. They will be gone. The point I'm making is most of the women I know, I'm not saying that some don't let themselves go, but most of the women still have some sort of pride in themselves, even if they are overweight. They're like, well, let me just tuck in this situation. I'm still going to put on my cute pants and my boots, and they get their hair dyed and cut or highlighted or whatever it is. They slap on their makeup. They still want to get their nails done and toes done. Like they're not out there. Like, I saw Miranda. I was like, okay, that's different with the gray hair. But she's still a beautiful woman though, right? Like even though the wig was bad. I mean, I'm sorry, Cynthia Nixon is gorgeous regardless, but they didn't have to age her the way they did. And so the way they talked about age was just kind of like, so anyway, they address Miranda's character with the professor, and this is my take on it. I'm going to play another clip. They were talking about, they made the comments that they can't understand why people really didn't, I think they said something on the lines of they couldn't understand why people didn't get how ridiculous Miranda was. So they were like, they wanted to show that she could make the mistake, of blundering without being crazy. And let me just play this for a second, and then I'm going to give you a story for a second. Let me get my life together. And that was at the 6:25 mark. I took that note. This is what they said. It wasn't very long. So here we go. Here.
I don't agree with that analogy that she was an asshole. What I think people were responding to was the difference between 55 and 25.
Mm-hmm.
That the students in the room were having such a horrific experience
of her.
to what she's saying. They were projecting so much on top of this smart character that you love. That's exactly what happens when you don't know somebody. You don't give them the benefit of a doubt. And everybody, hopefully, who's known Miranda for 20 years, it feels like, oh, that's unfortunate.
All right, that's enough. I think you get the point. So they're making it seem like, all right, well, I'm sorry, I'm really bad about reading comments. Oh, hello there. What's up, Liz? So, I mean, I can actually invite people up here. I'm really bad about everything. So let me go ahead and copy that. Okay, I'll put that in the chat. If you want to come on up, come on up. This is the thing. And I'm going to say this when they were going in, that's the only two clips I'm going to bring up about from that podcast. When they were talking about the whole Miranda, why does it say? Okay, whatever. So this is the thing. When they made the comment about Miranda making a blunder, right? Like she just stepped all in it. This is the part that bugs me. Now, I can't speak for white women, but I'm going to speak on behalf of them for a second. That's not even the words that I want to use. I am a Black woman, and I kind of felt like if I were white, I would have been insulted that Miranda was painted as this dumb, like she's an idiot. There's a difference between making a blunder and then they took it all the way to the left. They took it all the way to the left. Okay. I'm like, most people, they'll make a blunder, but they're not that dumb. Now, let me give you a story. Where I live, there's a bunch of people who don't like me. I remember, so I used to volunteer at this food pantry. Okay. And I would come in every month because, it was monthly. And people were like, they were like, oh, hi. Now, I used to wear my hair in braids. I will probably wear braids sometime in the near future when I'm done with my situation here. So I will wear these box braids. We call them box braids. Box braids are when you basically, it's like making a box. They're called individuals. I like box braids. So there was a woman next to me. She decides to come up to me because I'm still relatively at the time new in this area. She came up to me. She was like, oh, I just love your hair. And I'm like, thank you. And she proceeded to reach out and touch them and touch me. Now, the last time I checked, I wasn't woofing or meowing. I am not a pet. So I'm sitting there thinking like, well, let me look behind me. Is there something growing? I mean, what is going on? I mean, I know I have hairy arms, but I didn't know it was like fur. So basically, I jumped back and now she's looking, some kind of way. And I'm like, yeah, we're not doing that. Now, there's more that goes into it, but I think you get the gist. The point I'm making is there's a difference between making a mistake, just like one of my daughters, my daughter had a friend. She's still really good friends with her. In the beginning, I would braid my daughter's hair up into a ponytail and put it in a bun. Real pretty, really classic. And she would always want to come up and touch. I'm like, oh, no, we don't do that. And her mom, who I'm really good friends with, she was like, oh, no, she didn't mean anything about it. And I'm like, okay, but yeah, we're not going to do that, right? I said, this is the thing. Whether she meant something by it doesn't matter. It's still offensive. It's kind of like, I didn't mean to call you, pick any racial slur, but you did. I thought it was a nice name, but you did. Now, can you move on? Yes. Educate, move on. Depending on, and you have to assess the situation. Where I'm going with this is when they were talking about, like, we can't believe people didn't understand that Miranda could make such a blunder. I'm like, it wasn't the blunder. They overwrote, like they were trying to oversell it. So it didn't land. It didn't resonate. And more so, they said, no, they were talking about the students' reaction. I'm like, the viewer, in my opinion, I don't believe cared about the students' reaction to her. They were so focused on having the students react to her. And of course, they had to call out her age difference. I'm like, no, it was this, they were trying too hard. They were trying too hard. So that's the reason why I think that the viewers are practically like, they're like gnashing their teeth because they're like, wait a second. There's this assumption that's being made that the viewer is lacking intelligence, right? That's why I always say that the writers were trolling the viewer. There was an assumption that the viewer was stupid, but not only that, there was an assumption that all white women are so dumb. And I'm like, it's just not even true. Some of them may be a little misinformed, but aren't we all misinformed on some things? There's things that I am misinformed on with white people that they've had to call me out. Or like, we don't blah, blah. I'm like, you don't? Oh, okay. I mean, they had to check. But I'm just saying, like, you call it out and you move on. You don't. I mean, and not only that, it's not even realistic. If she's a lawyer in New York City, you mean to tell me that she was just like that unaware? Give me a break. So anyway, they talked about how they introduced Natasha. And I'm going to be honest, my personal opinion was, I cannot believe my children are that loud upstairs. Like, it's not that hard to take a shower. So I didn't have a problem with the way they introduced Natasha. I don't really have a real major issue with it. They could have done more with that, though, right? Because the fact of the matter was, she miraculously gets this $1 million. And they were talking about how basically wanted to call out that like Big had, like, he was just always imperfect and he was always basically problematic. I just felt like they could have done more with that, actually, because she was very important in the original series. She was part of the reason why Carrie had so much angst, because she was basically with the love of her life. So that $1 million, I mean, like, if I were in a situation, like if my husband decided that he had some other kind of family or married somebody or something, I don't know, I would feel some kind of way if a will was being read. And by the way, I won't be present when all this goes down because we're going to die at the same time. He cannot die before me. I'm not dying before him. It's just not happening. So I won't have any experience in this at all. We're dying at the same time. That's settled. You hear that, God? Okay. So I just think that, if I were in that situation and I'm finding out that, my husband could have left 50 cents to somebody, I'm like, well, who is this chick that's getting 50 cents? Like, why? Oh, were you married before? Like, what's going on? Like, I don't know. Like, I probably would have been like hyper focused on that. Like, what's going on? So I just thought it was weird. Now, maybe moving forward too fast, but it was almost as if it was like never heard of again. I felt like the writers were actually quite lazy. They're like, you know what? We're not going to be clever on how we address things like confusion in a will, or ageism, or binary and trans people, right? We're just going to just put it all out there. There's no finessing. There's no development. There's nothing. So that's just my opinion. So anyway, the writers, like, they spent an extraordinary amount of time in the beginning of the podcast basically putting band-aids on their wounds, like applying salve to the wounds, because they were just like, people just didn't understand us, and I don't understand why it was just such a strong reaction. I'm like, okay. So anyway, the Natasha thing didn't bother me too much. They mentioned a couple of things about what was supposed to happen, how Carrie was supposed to recover, and I guess they scrapped some of the scenes. I don't know. I can go through that, but I don't want to. I just think this was the episode. I know they talked about the whole Shay situation. I gotta remember to say Shay because I always want to say Shay. I think they did okay with introducing her, trying to bring her into the storylines. I just think that the interaction with Miranda, it wasn't like organic to me, right? There were certain things that sparked her interest, but they didn't give the viewer enough time to walk that dog. Like we didn't get enough time. It was kind of like I'm arguing, but now I like her. Now I'm infatuated by her, and I'm just crazy. So I don't know. I think that's why, like, the viewer was kind of like, we hate Shay. Like I didn't even really hate Shay. Really, I just didn't understand the story. So it was just team too much for me. But the writers, um, I don't even talk about that anymore. More Charlotte sucks. They did make a funny little comment, which actually did not bother me. A lot of people would probably be bothered by this, but this did not bother me. They were talking about how um Charlotte made a couple of really lame lines in this episode. And one of them was in reference to like when Natasha was supposed to receive that $1 million, and they were saying like, oh, well, she's like, well, it's not that much money that she's going to be left with once the taxes eat it up or whatever. It's only like $450,000 or something like that. And I think the last time I checked, usually taxes on that. Well, I don't know. I don't know what the inheritance tax is, but I thought it was like, I don't know. I don't want to get into it. And then there were some other things he said, but I think the biggest thing was I got it. I think they made it so that she was still purposefully out of touch. I'm okay with that. She's just stupid in every way in other scenes. So they wanted to make Shay as like a real person to the story. So they kept trying to introduce her in this episode. And I don't have an issue with that. Like I said, I don't think the issue was the introduction of Shay. I think it was the rapid, the acceleration of the relationship between Shay and Miranda. There was no finessing. And that's why the viewer was like, you have jacked up so much in this reboot, like make it make sense. That's why people were like over it. So anyway, they wanted to make her seem very make Shay Day seem like a real person in the series, not just like this person that was there but not going to show up in another episode. So that they make Shay show up in several scenes, like rescuing Gloria, showing up for Carrie, at the funeral, and some other stuff. But they're like, yeah, and I think this is the reason why people love Shay. I'm like, I don't know. Did they love Shay in that? I don't even remember what I thought in that episode, to be honest. But I think, like I said, the writers were just self-absorbed. I just think, I don't know. It was just such a strange. I think I was expecting this writer's podcast to be a little shorter and a little bit to the point with a couple of hee-haws in between, but it seems more like a self-licking ice cream cone. Like, we're so amazing. You just didn't get our humor. You don't understand. We landed that joke. Like, we stuck the landing. I don't know. I just kind of feel like maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. I'm not making the connection. So I'm just kind of like, why would you do that? Especially if you're going to take something iconic. I'm telling you, you have to hit it out the ballpark because people are going to be highly critical. I'm trying to think of like fan favorite shows from back in the day. It's kind of like Roseanne was good. We didn't realize how problematic she was then, but like Roseanne was good back then, but the reboot was like, and then she went crazy. It's kind of like messing up. It's like rebooting Family Ties or The Cosby Show or The Wonder Years. You should just leave those where they are. I'm hearing that they're going to reboot The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and somebody said it's going to be on Peacock, but it's going to be more of a drama. Why would you do that? Why? All right, so moving on. So this is the thing. This isn't bad. So like I said, it wasn't all bad. Now that I've had time to process this, but they wanted to show a variety of the marriages, like how some people are still in love and some people are just whatever. Basically, they made the comment that Samantha would have said that, hey, your vagina doesn't die at 50 or something on those lines, and maybe just say, for the record, I'm glad that they made that comment That's true. Now, I mean, I know people don't want me to say vagina. I don't know, it's a normal word, but it is true. Now, I'm not 50 yet, but what I am saying is just because you're at middle age, it doesn't mean you're no longer sexy, that you're no longer into those things. I don't know. But the reason why I like this is because they said that they wanted to show a variety of marriages in various dire straits, or not dire straits, but just in various stages. So you have Charlotte and Harry, who seem to be into each other, but then Miranda and Steve, I'm feeling for you, brother. They're not doing anything. And the reason why I stopped on this point was because I was having a conversation with someone, maybe a little over a year ago. And I don't know how we got onto the conversation of the good, doing the good, but she mentioned that like her and her husband don't even really do it anymore. It's not something they talk about anymore. They don't do it. And it was like almost, I was like, oh my goodness, this is like a thing. I thought that was just a one-off, but apparently that highlighted, like I actually learned something. Like people just go through it and then they just stop engaging in that way, I'm trying to make sure I censor what I say because I don't want this to be something that gets struck. But when people are no longer having, intimate moments, like that happens in a marriage. I get it. I mean, I'm not talking about a dry spell. I'm talking about years. So this individual who made that comment to me, mentioning that like people go through that, like she's no longer doing that like her husband is fine, she loves her husband, but she's not even interested. This was like a couple years ago. I was like, oh my gosh, like I just didn't know. So anyway, I just thought it was interesting that the comment was like, hey, Samantha would have said something like, I believe they said it was Samantha, that, hey, I'm sorry, let me take that off. I had Liz Nas up there forever. But basically we're like, hey, there are people who are just not involved. And she's basically like, your vagina doesn't die at 50. So it was very interesting to me. But they wanted to call out how Miranda was going through this phase with Steve. Okay. And Jay was the catalyst for this change, right? Like suddenly Miranda, I guess it was like an awakening. I do believe people go through something like that. I think what did not resonate for me was she went from being very logical and responsible to like extremely selfish and cold. And I didn't like that. I think, and I don't know, maybe it's just where I'm at in my life, but we see a lot going on out here in this world. There's a lot of people who are hurting. And even though I joke about a lot of things, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of people being hurt. I'm just not. I just feel like there's just so much going on, and deep down I'm a big fat baby. So even though this was just a show, I mean, I wasn't losing sleep over fictitious characters, Steve. I didn't like seeing how there was like this license to just throw people away because of this. Why is my ear itching so much? This is one ear. I don't like seeing people being thrown away because of our own selfishness, and we're all so flawed. Every single one of us were so flawed. And so for her to just have this permission to just explore because she was going through it, and it was like there was no consideration for Steve, her son, that institution, how things would be affected. It was just all about her because she wanted change. There was, and I don't know. So anyway, I just thought it was interesting that they brought that up, and they talked about Miranda's drinking, blah blah blah, during the pandemic. I don't care because I drink a lot more too during the pandemic. So I'm getting close. So one of the writers, I can't remember her name now. This is where I'm probably, like I said, I struggle with this. One of the writers, I guess, was confronted with the Rose Now Rock issue in her own life. And so she was basically saying she had to deal with a kid who had some gender issues. And so this is the thing. I am a torn person when it comes to that type of thing because as a parent, that's got to be heartbreaking. It's got to be stressful. It's got to be confusing. The child is already confused. But on the same token, I'm like, what is going on with this child that they are so hyper focused on their identity, their sexual orientation, all those things? What is going on? Who is this child talking to? What are they reading? Why aren't they involved in something, anything? It doesn't have to be a sport. The knitting club, the debate club, the hair braiding club, the nose picking club, the toenail clicking I can't even get the words out. The toenail clipping club, whatever it is. I it's just really hard for me. And fortunately, I have not been presented with that. I don't I don't know. I don't know what is going on when parents indulge everything. I think I am not in that position. It's a lot easier for me to say certain things, so I'm going to try to be sensitive to it. But in the same thing, I got to walk in my own truth. I'm like, if one of my children came up to me, I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. I think the way they handled it in the episode, it just seemed like it was just glossed over, like, oh, Rose wants to be Rock. I'm like, no. Because if you go through all of this and you went to this effort to make sure you're being called something else, you want to be called like all this other stuff. I'm like, this was a lot of energy put into this. So, but one of the things I'm going to wonder is what is going on with you? But now I'm going to be wondering, like, well, what did I not see? Am I not engaging enough? Did I not pay attention enough? That's not to say that the child would have changed, but I'm going to be wondering, like, why are you so hyper focused on that when there's so many other things at 12 you should be focused on? But that's just me. So I think that's the reason why I was just struggling with that. I'm like, that's why you want to, like, what you're putting that in your hey, good evening, Azura Franco. I hope I said that correctly. I don't understand that. I just don't. So all right, we're gonna get past that. I cannot remember who this lady was that was talking. Clearly, it was not that important to me because she was concerned that everyone's going to think that it was her and Michael Patrick King's personal lives that was written in. I'm like, well, you did write part of your personal life in there about your child. I mean, the whole parenting thing. But she made it clear that it wasn't just about their lives. Some of it was just whatever. So Sada, I think that was, I can't keep up with these names. Somebody is non-binary, half Mexican and Irish. I don't know. So Michael Patrick King said he was talking to I know I'm skipping ahead because I'm getting close to the end of this. He learned about he was talking about trans, right? And he wanted to know, like, what should I basically put into this show? Now, I will say this. I did learn something in this writer's podcast. He said that when you're talking to somebody who's talking about trans representation in the show, he mentioned that there's typically only one person and that the person is always sad. Now, when I think about that, I mean, it made me pause because, I'm going to be honest. I don't have, why is this ear itching? I don't have any experience with the trans community or anything like that. I've seen a few people who, in my opinion, I guess was going through the change. It was definitely, it was interesting. I'm going to be honest because it was typically, from what I have seen, men wanting to transition into women, and these are men who look stereotypically masculine and nothing feminine about them, but the man, I don't know if they identify with being a woman yet because I think they still had male names. It was just so confusing. There was one man who I don't think was a woman yet because I don't remember his name, and even if I did, I wouldn't call it out. Okay, he was about 6'2" or 6'3", trying to wear heels and skirts and stuff, but had that man brow and the stubble, but grew his hair out. It was beautiful. Had these big old man hands, but had like nail polish. The whole thing was so confusing. I'm like, I don't even, I'm just like looking at this man. I'm like, all right, I guess this is how we're getting down. And then I ran into another one. I'm not going to say when or where. It was confusing because there was eyeshadow and nail polish but it was like the 5 o'clock mustache and I don't know. beard. It was just so confusing. So I'm like, well, which one is it? Which one? I mean, I'm like, I don't know. Is it just you don't know how to do the female grooming? I don't know. So the whole thing was just like, for me, it was fascinating. It was confusing. I wanted to ask questions, but then it's kind of like, well, what questions do you ask? And then it makes you pause. It makes you think, right? Because when I was talking to some of my white counterparts, some of them were like, I don't even know what to ask because I feel like anything that I say is going to be kind of effed up. I'm like, it probably will be, but how are you going to get answers? I'm like, now you do have the opportunity to go read some books and educate yourself. And I've tried doing some reading and I don't necessarily get the answers that I'm looking for when I look up trans information. But I will say, it is confusing. So I'm like, when seeing these types of things, it gives me reason to pause and say, hey, look, I don't understand it. I don't identify with the lifestyle, but I don't know. I just try to understand people. But anyway, so when he was talking about that, he said that there typically is just one trans person and they're typically sad. When I was watching the show on, I don't remember what I was streaming. So it was called Pose. And it basically dealt with people who were trans and who were gay, who were in the drag community, I'm sorry, back in the 80s. And the show was just very sad to me, just trying to understand, like, because to me, I don't understand that. Like, I don't care how many times you try to explain it to me. I'm like, it's a very confusing, I don't know, but it was really interesting how he wanted to address that in the series. So I was okay with it. I don't have to understand it, but I'm like learning a lot. I just think as I round this up, they made Miranda extremely cold. Her new name is Satan with the beanie cap. They were talking about she started to become pure Miranda when she didn't want to go home to Steve, and she became out of control and all this other stuff like that. And they're like really, really focused on the various takes of her blowing smoke when I guess she was, what do you call it? When they were saying she was robo smoked or whatever it was, robo something, whatever it was, when Che blew smoke in her mouth. And they're like, it was really thrilling. I'm like, for who? Because I was just like, okay. I forgot what the term was, robo blowing or something. And then they were talking about how Carrie returns to her apartment. So look, that's pretty much it. The way I look at it was the writers are into themselves. They're like cats. They're cats. They're full on felines. They're out there licking and preening themselves. They're like, we are the best. That's what they're doing. We're the best. We're the smartest. We don't understand why you don't get our jokes. We don't understand why you're so critical because we're amazing in every way. I was just like, okay. I mean, like, I don't know. I guess they're trying to bring up issues. I think, like I said, if they would have just slowed this train down, either given us more episodes or made the episodes a full hour and finessed us into these characters and these issues, I think it would have been better received. But to just jump out there and be like, I'm 55, I'm 55, I'm 55. I'm 55, I'm 55. Did you know? Hey, I got a secret to tell you, I'm 55. It was just like so corny to me. I don't know. I'm telling you right now, when I turn 55, I can say this now because I know it's in front of me. Who knows what I'm going to do, but I can dream. I will not be acting like Miranda. I've seen what 55 looks like, and I'm telling you, like 55 does not act like that, and they don't look like that. And not only that, let me just say this. This is where I'm really going to probably tick some people off. A lot of women are out here getting Botox and everything else, and lips are pumped up because they're like, they want to preserve their beauty because beauty is power and it is a commodity. It is almost like currency, right? Youth, all of those things. Most of the 55-year-olds I know are like getting their hair cut, getting it dyed or layered or I don't know, whatever. And if they're not doing a whole lot, you know what they're doing? Maybe their wardrobe is flattering on them, regardless of their body type. They are getting Botox or whatever. And to me, it is not believable that these women are living in New York City and not maintaining. The only one really maintaining is Charlotte, but she looks stupid. She got her mouth like she's doing that weird thing with the fluttering, the seizure thing. It's not believable. But all right, that's it. I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are. Maybe it was just me. I just felt like they were just really into themselves. It was like a self-looking ice cream cone, and they couldn't understand why people just did not. I don't know. Whatever. All right. Well, look. Let me know if you guys think, if you want me to recap these other ones. There were 7 more to go. I wasn't originally going to do it. Someone said you should. I feel like I'm like a day late, $1 short. So I'll try to do 1 or 2 a week if there's something that you want to hear. But that's it. That's just my opinion. All right. Well, look, you guys have a good night. It is 8:45 p.m. I am on the East Coast. I need to go probably yell at somebody and say hello to my husband. Black opinionated woman.